Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Partnership for Profits. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Forgive that, but I got a really great guest here today who knows how to turn drive into results both on and off the field. We got Conner LeBlanc here, who is a former LSU athlete turned business strategist and tech leader. He currently serves as a senior business development and compliance manager at General Informatics. Is that the right title?
That's what we're going with these days. Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Awesome, man. Yeah, Conner, man, thanks so much for coming on. We've had the opportunity to correspond via email several times over the last couple of years, but we're actually getting to talk face to face today. So I'm super glad that you're here, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Well, appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I want to start with LSU. I want to start with football. You played at LSU, right?
I did. I was a walk-on, backup long snapper. Tried out in the fall of 2012, my freshman year, and actually didn't make the team the first time I tried out, but was kind of encouraged by the coaching staff and by Les Miles and Coach T-Mac, the special teams coordinator at the time, to come back and try out again the following spring, trained, and then actually made it whenever I tried out again that spring. And then so was on the team for 3 seasons, 13, 14, and 15. Played with some of the all-time greats, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, a few other guys, Jeremy Hill, Mettenberger, Lyle Collins. So we were definitely stacked back then, and a shame we never were able to bring home a natty.
Hey, you walked on at a Division I SEC school and made the team. That's not anything to shake us. Like that's amazing. I want to talk a little bit. So tell me how your time as a student athlete and as a walk-on, how did that shape your mindset and your approach to business and to leadership? Did that? I'm sure that has a lot to do with kind of where you are today.
Of course, man. Yeah. Look, like any walk-on, particularly back then, can tell you is that, we got very used to the twice the work for half the credit mentality. Don't get me wrong, backup long snapper is the best position on the team. I don't care what anyone says. Like it rocks. But, at the same time, I was essentially a mobile practice dummy because I also played scout special teams. And so,
Sure.
we got beat up on. And I was also played tight end for a while. So, my job was to, give the starters a good look. And part of doing that is just, getting the crap beat out of you every day. So, I definitely got used to, having to put in the extra effort, having to work out extra, just being, not the biggest, fastest, or strongest, and by no means the most talented, but, willing to work hard, definitely was something that was ingrained in me, even back in high school, by my dad and by my high school coaches. And so, I think taking that sort of mentality through, law school, through the MBA program, and then eventually into business has become a big part of my life for sure.
For sure. Yeah, man. Yeah. And long snappers are hard to good long snappers are hard to find, man. That's at least from what I understand. Like that's a very specialized skill to do that well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I always joke it's a lot like golf. Like I'm actually probably better at long snapping now than I was whenever I was on the team. Just because I've been doing it longer, it's all muscle memory. I didn't learn how to long snap until my senior year of high school. And I literally learned by watching YouTube videos. Like that was not, it was not something that I ever really thought. But, once you get up to a high enough level, like you can only snap the ball so hard.
Right.
In a perfect, and like once you're snapping at a certain velocity into the perfect spot, it all becomes about consistency. And whenever you look at the guys that I backed up, the Ferguson brothers, Reed and Blake. Blake's been at the Bills for, a decade, and his younger brother, Reed's been at the Bills, and then Blake is still in Miami. So those guys, I could be wrong, but I don't think, they've had a bad snap in their career. So at that point, it's all about consistency.
For sure. So you got a JD? You went to law school too?
I did, LSU. Yep.
So you didn't go into law though? Or did you practice at all, or did you take the bar? Or?
So So it was weird. very weird. So I graduated law school in May of 2020. Okay. So that was during the lockdowns, right? Now, this
Hmm.
is a controversial topic particularly in the Louisiana legal industry, but I am of one of maybe 400 lawyers who I am a barred attorney in the state of Louisiana. I could, go to court if I needed to. I'm a
Yeah.
full, full barred attorney, but I never sat for the bar because they canceled it because of COVID. It's crazy. So me and my cohort studied for the bar for 4 months.
Yeah.
And the week before the test, we got an email from the Supreme Court saying that the bar was canceled, but with no additional information. So we didn't know if we were going to have to retake it, go to another state and take it.
Wait,
We thought the least likely option was that they were just going to pass us. Like that was like not in the cards at all.
that's wild. So they just passed you guys without taking the exam.
Well, no, but you had to basically be was considered a qualified candidate. So you had
Okay.
to have had a certain GPA in law school. You had to have graduated from a Louisiana law school, and you had to have been sitting for the bar for the first time.
Okay.
Um, and then if you met all three of those categories, you had to go through a year long called transition into practice program, which usually isn't required, but they required it for us, where you had to you had to sit in on depositions and do jail visits and go to certain appellate briefings. And so you had to check all these boxes, which for someone like me who actually wasn't intending on going to work for a law firm anyway,
Right.
kind of ended up being a pain in the ass because I wasn't doing those things, but it was a great experience. And look, man, this is the truth. And any lawyer could tell you this. Law school does not teach you how to be a lawyer. You learn a lawyer by becoming a lawyer. Law school
Yeah.
teaches you laws. You have to go figure that out, right? And so I originally thought that I was going to go to law school to become my family's attorney. And then I realized doing internships that in clerking that I'm not really into it. I don't really love the idea of billing hours and being a traditional lawyer. And so
Right.
that's why I did the JD MBA program at
Okay.
LSU.
So that's what so that year-long program was kind of what told you, all right, I don't need to be a practicing attorney. I need to go the other route.
Yeah, I wanted to do more transactional work. If I did do lawyer work, it would be mostly, working deals, closing
Sure.
deals, doing contracts, which is ironic because now what I'm doing is mostly, closing deals, but it's also like more in the business
Right.
side of things. And now there's a lot of like data compliance. And so, I mean, look, I use my law degree and I use my, capacity as a lawyer every day. It's just very non-traditional and not at all what I thought I would be doing whenever I was in law school.
So the MBA was is that what led you into General Informatics? Tell us about your role there and
Yeah.
the mission at the company and tell us about the company's approach to innovation, what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so the MBA piece actually is what led me into technology. So whenever I did my MBA, so law school's 3 years and then the MBA is 2 years, but if you do them together as part of the joint program, you can do both of them in 4. So that's what
Okay.
put me graduating in May of 2020 rather than in 2019 with when I should have graduated with my class. But because
Right.
I had that extra year, it put me in COVID, put me during COVID. But in that time during the lockdowns, I ended up leaning on the entrepreneurial program that I did as part of the MBA program to actually start my own startup. And so we started a company called Zenith doing immersive content production and virtual tours. And then that is actually what led me to General Informatics. I basically got connected with our CEO Don in the summer of 21. As I was trying to scale Zenith, and he was like, "Hey, man, listen, like, you know, you have a lot of connections in this area. You know a lot of people. You seem to have the drive to be successful. Help me come grow this business, and I'll teach you about business development in the tech industry. I'll teach you about private equity. I'll teach you about how to scale a tech company." Um, and I thought that sounded pretty great. So accepted a job with GI in July of 21, and I've been doing that for over 4 years now, which is crazy to think about.
And tell me
Um,
what does GI do and what's the mission of the company? Who are you guys serving?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're what you call a managed security services provider. Well,
MSP. Okay.
traditionally we would be called an MSP, right? Managed
Right.
service provider. But now, because of the special focus we have on security, servicing highly regulated industries like banking, finance, maritime, the legal space, to a certain extent that they're regulated. Um, we mostly focus on security services. So in addition to all the traditional IT services, IT help desk support, cloud backups, network management, email filtering, and things like that. We also offer security services, so things like managed detection and response, SIM and SOC, penetration testing, and even more high level, what we call advisory services, like fractional CISO or Chief Information Security Officer services, or compliance as a service, which is something that I actually focus on. Is making sure that if you have a cyber insurance policy, cyber liability insurance policy, that you can get coverage, or if they come in and do an audit, you can show that you have the proper documentation, or if you have a regulator that's saying that you need to be CMMC or NIST compliant, we would come in and basically either work with your internal IT department, work with your outsourced IT department, or
Right.
in our capacity as your outsourced IT uh, provider, make sure that you're meeting all those requirements that are stipulated either by a regulator or by your insurance policy.
So compliance is not. I wouldn't say compliance is the sexiest topic out there, but it's critical,
It
right?
doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. It's not a fun word.
if someone was like, "Thank you for your compliance," I'm like, "That sounds like 1984." I don't like that at all.
but it's critical, right? It's super important.
Yeah.
How talk to me a little bit how strong compliance, like the strategy of having a strong compliance, how does how does it create growth and not just protection in your business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So compliance is interesting, right? So whenever you think of like data compliance, most people think of the healthcare space and HIPAA,
Yeah.
right? So everyone's heard of HIPAA, right? So that's like a data compliance regime. Similar in the financial sector, you have FINRA. Um, what that is mainly gauged at is creating a system of best practices within an industry, so that your base level provider of either health services or financial services, you can rest assured that they're being audited and that they're going to protect you. On the insurance side of thing, that's kind of what's driving a lot of the compliance outside of those highly regulated industries. I mean, there are construction companies and you know fabrication companies or whatever that now have to be data compliant because of their cyber insurance, right? And so that's what's driving a lot of that. To the extent that it innovates and could even potentially help companies make more money,
Right.
uh, I think that that's probably where you start getting into technologies like AI, honestly, um, because to the extent that you have data that you can leverage to generate outside returns, that's where using things like automation and different kind of data models, different kind of AI data models to sort of create efficiency inside of your organization that can help you generate more revenue, right? But the problem that we've seen is that as companies sort of race to implement these AI tools, they have particularly in the industries that I service, have a bad habit of cutting corners and not really thinking about it, and I don't want to out my, colleagues in the legal space, but they're some of the worst culprits. They're
Really?
throwing everything in Chat GPT, and I'm like, guys, that's you can't do that. Like, there's no obligation that they won't sell that, your proprietary client data to, data brokers. So, that's
Do
to the
you
extent that data
do
compliance, kind of fits into that. We have to make sure that our clients are going through the proper measures whenever it comes to managing data as they implement these AI tools. Does
so
that make sense? Like, that was kind of like a roundabout way of getting
yeah,
to
that
your.
it does make sense, and it kind of so you're saying lawyers are putting in case information into Chat GPT? Is that something that you're seeing
Yeah,
that
well,
they're
it's
doing?
like, yeah. I mean, look, obviously, I can't talk about anyone specific, but like, but like these cases are out there. Like, you can go online and find instances of attorneys just dumping,
Yeah, I know
droves.
that's happening more and more often, yeah.
It is happening more and more often, unfortunately. And so what we now focus on is helping clients build out what's called like air gapped tools, so that we can basically take a model and train it on your internal data without it having to go to the open internet. And you don't have to worry about, any data exfiltration. So we were basically training a model on all your internal data so that it stays contained and you don't run into data compliance issues
How do
that
you
way.
make so you're training and you're basically training an AI, training like you would train your chat GPT to not share that information? Is that basically what
That's
is that what you're saying
Yeah,
in a
that's right.
nutshell?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because like the way that the model improves itself is by taking all the data that's put into it and then
Yeah, yeah.
applying the sum of all that data to the question that you're asking, right?
100%. Yeah,
Like,
I have my chat GPTs trained on like each one of my clients. I have a separate thing for my clients where I can go in there and work with my AI on that
yeah,
stuff. But I haven't told it to. Do you have to basically tell it, hey, don't share this, keep it secret? Like you have to just kind of train
yeah,
it to be. I didn't even think about that on my end. Not that we're sharing
yeah.
proprietary data or anything. I'm not working on case
But
logs or
right.
medical records, but
Yeah, exactly, but, like, that's an example, like, hey, like, any so it's called personally identifiable information, PII, right? So, like, any PII that goes into, ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity or whatever, if you don't have a negotiated, term of service with that AI, like, that with that kind of dictates
right,
the tier of your license, there's no obligation for them to not sell that data.
right,
Right? They don't know what you're using it for,
huh?
So all that data can be, leaked to the open internet, right? So that's why we encourage businesses to I'll give you an example. A lot of companies are in Microsoft, right?
Yep,
You have what's called like a SharePoint, right? So your SharePoint is sort of like your company intranet where all your internal control documents and everything it sort of exists within that SharePoint. One thing that we've done at GI and what our CEO Don is really focused on is we actually have built out an internal, actually a couple internal AI chatbots that are trained on all of our internal information that lives within our SharePoint. So all of our sales documents, all of our control documents, all of our corporate strategy plans, like all basically everything that is GI, all of our RFP documents lives inside of our SharePoint. That's not going to the open internet.
right.
But if you go in and you ask, he named it Megan, and her name's Megan Landry. She's actually Cajun. It's ridiculous, but like she's like answering in like like Cajun French. It's hilarious. But if you ask a question, she'll actually be able to go and search all the internal documentation that's in our SharePoint, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I guess I've seen that kind of stuff. I'm thinking about the security aspect end of it and not making it shareable. I didn't even think of that as being a thing, and it makes sense because uh, social media is sharing our stuff all the time. They're selling our information.
It's a two-way street, right? Like, nothing's
Yeah,
free. Like, if you're
yeah.
putting stuff into ChatGPT and you think it's free, like, you're the product,
Well, I'm
you
paying
know?
like I pay for the AI stuff that I pay for Perplexity. I pay for
Not you
ChatGPT.
specifically, but just, like, anyone who's, like,
Well,
using, like, the free
but if I do have that paid model, like I still need to be. That's still
Oh,
something that you
yeah.
need to put in place because they can still sell it. Like, there's nothing that says they can't sell
Oh,
that
yeah.
information to
Yeah.
somebody. Huh?
They do have enterprise, like, you can negotiate enterprise rates. Like, if you're a big law firm, like, I do know that they've negotiated rates where, like, "Hey, don't sell this data," and they're like, "Alright, we won't sell the data." And then, you have
Okay.
them. I actually was part of an American Bar Association AI task force that worked on providing guidance on behalf of the American Bar Association to lawyers that are looking at implementing these tools. And this was like 2 years ago. I did this, and it's just crazy to see how far it's come
Yeah,
in
it's
that
changed a
time.
lot in 2 years, man. It's changing every day for sure. So, well, that's cool. That's good to know. I'm gonna have to do some due diligence on my end. Again, I'm not sharing, financial information or medical information or legal information, but it's still our information on our clients. I didn't even think about that. I need to tell Armando too, like, hey man, we
Yeah,
probably need to
yeah.
make sure that we're covered on some of
Yeah.
that stuff. So, and I'll tell him like, hey, call Connor. You need to talk to Connor about this stuff.
Well, Armando calls me for all kind of random shit. So, like, there's
I'm
no
sure he
telling
does.
what. Yeah.
I don't doubt it. I don't
But
doubt
no, I
it.
mean, my whole thing, man, is just like I am trying to evangelize, the folks of South Louisiana that I care about most. This is
Yeah.
my home. I'm from Morgan City. I live in Gonzales. My office is in Baton Rouge, and I spend most of my time in New Orleans. And my biggest clients in Lafayette. So, like, I mean, I'm like legit
You're
all
covering the
over.
whole southern part
And
of the
then I
state.
go down to Home and Thibodeau and down the Bayou all the time as well. So, like, these are the businesses that I think have been unfortunately underserved in the technology space whenever it comes
Right.
to things like AI for sure, but even like basic cybersecurity tools, like, and that puts a big target on us as South Louisiana businesses. And so,
Right.
my goal is to just educate, right? At least let, now, a few more things that you didn't know before. And that's sort of my goal, is to just, make people aware and give them enough information where they have the background knowledge to at least ask the question, you know?
Yeah, man. I think that's great. I think it's super important. So are you doing that with are they small businesses that you're targeting in the southern part of the state? Are they larger businesses? Who are you trying to, uh, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
make
mean,
sure
like,
you
we've definitely moved up market, I would
Mhm.
say, over the last few years. I always used to say, like, I mean, we could work with anyone. And I still do genuinely mean that. There's no business in terms of like number of employees that I would say is too small. It's really a matter of like, you could have 4 employees, but like, do you have tremendously valuable data that lives in your
Right.
network that needs security tools? Because if so, I guarantee that, we could provide services that'll meet that, and, hopefully the pricing that, would justify it, at the end of the day, we've grown significantly. Whenever I joined, we had 70 employees, mostly just here in the Baton Rouge market, at our office here. And now we have about 200 across the Gulf South, with offices in Dallas, Birmingham, Charlotte, and Beaumont, and a couple smaller offices in like um, Jackson and Waco. But we did just close, and this is actually probably the biggest thing that's going on in my life lately. We just closed an acquisition of a New Orleans-based cybersecurity company called GlobeNet. And their CEO, Kevin Gray, and I, who Kevin's staying on, and he's becoming our head of security services. He and I are working very closely together now, on servicing clients in the New Orleans market.
Cool.
And a lot of those are, uh, kind of maritime heavy. There's
Okay.
we found that that's an industry that's particularly underserved in terms of technology investment. And so, we see there as being a big need, and one that we think we can really excel at.
So on the business dev side of things, these underserved businesses, underserved communities, what does the outreach look like for you guys to go to them? Is it just are you just cold calling, or like how does that biz dev side work for you guys?
What I'm doing right now,
Mhm.
honestly. I mean, like, just being everywhere all the time,
Yep.
figuring out the different organizations that they're in. So look, I was, I'm very involved in GNO Inc. I'm familiar with GNO Inc., but
Mm.
the Greater New Orleans organization, their CEO
Okay.
Michael Head, they're like sort of the New Orleans area's economic development engine.
Okay.
I do a lot of stuff with the New Orleans Chamber of Commerce. I'm involved in PAL, the Port Association of Louisiana. There's an organization based out of Baton Rouge, but operates statewide, called Lobby, Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. Me, our CEO, and Kevin Gray, the former CEO of GlobeNet, now our head of security services, are going to be speaking at a cybersecurity and AI summit in Baton Rouge on November 9th, I think it is.
Cool.
November, yes, November 9th. So, yeah, if anyone's in, no, November 4th, excuse me. If anyone's interested in attending that AI cybersecurity summit, please let me know, and I can get you some information on that. Um, but like,
Yeah.
that's sort of the playbook, man, is, just being a resource, having it to where, you know, uh hopefully you don't get hacked. Hopefully you don't have an email breach. Hopefully, you're not dealing with that kind of stuff. But if and when that kind of thing does happen, that I'm a resource, and that, that a company like mine, can, rappel out of helicopters like SEAL Team 6 and save you if need be.
I'm laughing because the word hopefully is something that came up today. We had a sales huddle meeting with our sales team today, and we're talking about some projects that need to get done and when they were going to get finished. And 2 or 3 different people were like, "Well, hopefully, I'm going to get that done by next week." Yeah, I should be able to make that happen. And we're like,
Do
guys,
or do not. There is no
we
try.
gotta stop. Yeah, exactly. We need to be Yoda here, guys. We can't. There's no more hopeful. Like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna get it done by this day. It was just funny. We had that conversation earlier today. That word hopeful was like, it's a good word. Hopeful's great, but we got to get,
Yeah.
we got to move. We got to make things happen.
Yeah. Well,
So
look, man, I mean, look, unfortunately, whenever it comes to cybersecurity services, the type of which we sell, it is unfortunately a lot like selling insurance. People have a hard time assessing how much something's worth
hundred
until
percent.
that happens. And then by the time that happens, you're paying 3 times as much, and it could even be too late. And so, my job is to hopefully not have to, convince someone to spend the money whenever they're already having the worst day of their life, but rather to
Believe me,
spend a lot less on the front end. So that goes back to the whole education piece, doing
I
things like
understand
this.
that. My wife works for she's a professor at a university, a small university. I'm in Georgia, by the way. I'm not in Louisiana, but
Yeah,
she works at a small university here in Georgia. And just 5 or 6 years ago, they got like their website and like all their internal workings were being held basically for ransom by a hacker. Ransomware, I guess is what it is. And they had to pay, it was like $250,000 to get everything back. And there was really no recourse other than just to pay the ransom to this whoever it was. I don't even know the full details of it, but it screwed this school for a good 2 years. This is a small liberal arts school. It's not like LSU. It's a small
yeah,
college. And
yeah,
they were completely screwed for 2 years trying to get back on track. Actually the COVID relief stuff actually really helped them because it
yeah,
kind of got them through
yeah.
that, but they didn't
Well,
have anything in place to take care of that on the front end. They have cybersecurity now that you better freaking believe that they
yeah,
do, but
yeah,
they didn't then, and
yeah,
they were screwed.
yeah,
So I've seen it happen firsthand.
yeah. A couple things. One, I would say, whenever it comes to actual cyber criminals, people don't think of it this way, but I mean, there's people that approach this like a job. There are people that wake up in the morning, kiss their kids goodbye, go to work, and hack people for a living.
Yep. And
More internationally, we
yeah,
see, we see a lot of this coming out of Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, but there's domestic cyber criminals as well. There are people, it doesn't matter where you're located. It matters, what industry you're in, and what they can tell just by kind of poking around and seeing how what your digital hygiene looks like.
well, this
Um,
school's digital hygiene was bad. There was cavities galore. So,
yeah,
but it's been fixed since then. I won't say the name of the school, but
yeah. No.
it's
Well,
a
look,
good university.
the second piece there is that one thing, as a lawyer, that what I sort of see is like, a potential future direction of my career is actually exploring what's called being a breach consultant, or breach counsel. These are attorneys who are typically impaneled by an insurance company. You get certified, you go through like courses, but as part of your cyber liability insurance policy, it'll actually cover the costs associated with having a breach counsel assigned to your security breach, and they
Okay.
would actually negotiate on your behalf with the cyber criminals, or in some instances cyber terrorists,
Yeah.
that could that could really do harm to you financially, or to kinetic harm to businesses if you're hacking a power plant or something like that. And so I think that that's something, unfortunately, that is going to become an even more valuable legal niche that I think we're going to need more lawyers to become familiar with. Just like we're going to need more lawyers to understand the nuances of privacy and security law as it relates to AI.
Right.
We're going to need lawyers that understand the nuances of, how to negotiate with cyber criminals. So,
Agreed. Agree. And like I said, speaking from firsthand experience, I mean, I didn't work there, but just hearing about it and the hardship that they went through, and I can imagine any business having to go through that, it would be awful. So yeah, get that stuff in place ahead of time. Like you said, it is like insurance; you don't need it until you need it.
yeah,
So you know, you got to get it in place. So all right, last question for you, Connor. Today, I want you to think about young professionals that are coming out of college, like you were just a few years ago. What's the advice you give to some young people that are kind of maybe coming into your field who want to blend purpose, like you have this purpose to help with growth in South Louisiana with ambition?
yeah. Yeah, man. Well, so look, I'll tell you this. One of like my like sort of passion side hustles is actually helping students get into law school and get into MBA programs, and sort of the ones that are sort of deciding whether or not to continue their education or, where that may, and then once you get in, figuring out what direction you want to go with your career. I'll be honest, there's not a whole lot of people, at least, 4, 5 years ago, whenever I graduated from law school, that were like, I'm going to go into technology law or
Right.
whatever. That's kind of made up, but like, you get my point.
Yep.
Um, but like for people just graduating and then are trying to figure out what to do, my recommendation is always to figure out what you actually really like doing. And then even if you don't get a job doing that right out of college or right out of grad school or whatever, start coming up with a plan for how to potentially position yourself to navigate into that industry, right? Look, I'll tell you this, if I didn't go into technology, there's a good chance I was going to go into NIL. I saw
Okay.
that the NIL, yeah, I was very interested in sports law. I did multiple case competitions in law school, like contract negotiation competitions, having to do with sports and endorsement deals, and I really kind of found that industry to be very, very interesting. At the time, the only way to really be a lawyer making it big time in sports was to be an agent.
Be an agent.
And
Yeah.
it is the most competitive, cutthroat industry that it has ever existed. I mean, it's like ridiculous how closely guarded some of those roles are. And
Sure.
so, to get a job as an agent out of law school is like unheard of. So what you do is you start working in like adjacent industries, and you start building your network and building connections and sort of positioning yourself, to potentially have that opportunity after you've proven that you have a track record of success, right?
Right.
And so, I'm going to apply that to, the industry I'm in. The value I bring, what aside from like, some like kind of like specific technical, like my specifically technical background, um, is my network. That is my value, is the people I know and the connections I've made. And, if you have a problem with your business, I might not have a business solution for you, but I know
You know
someone.
someone who does. Dude, I was
Yeah.
having that same conversation earlier today. I was talking to somebody, we were trading referrals, and I told him, if you can use us to help your business, you will certainly take your business. But if we're not the right person for your problem, I know someone who can fix it. And that's just the philosophy that we have is, we can help whether you hire us or whether I find somebody else who can fix the problem for you. Love that philosophy. It's a great
Yeah,
philosophy to
man.
have.
Because
It's a great way to keep.
it endears you to people, I mean, it
Yeah,
makes you
100%.
valuable, and, like, if I can't help you with what I do right now, I guarantee down the road, if you're successful, you're gonna need what I do.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, exactly. The sale can come at any point in time, but if you keep the relationship going, yeah, that's great advice for anybody. It's really words to live by in a business, in whether you own the business or whether you work for a business. But relationships are key in everything that we're doing. Relationship and networking, it's huge, man. So, Conner, buddy, I appreciate you coming on real quick. How far is LSU? Is LSU going to win it this year, you think?
yeah, of course. Yeah, man. I mean, look, like our offense needs to step it up. I mean, it's obvious. Like we need to, what our performance this past weekend against South Carolina ain't gonna cut it against Bama or A&M or shit, even Vandy this weekend. Like, we have to our offense has to show up. But I believe in us, I mean, I'm ride or die Tiger, for life. So,
I feel the same way about my dogs this year. We're kind of in the same boat. It's just we got to get some things clicking. It's
that's right.
possible, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
going to be Georgia's year this year or not. But
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, hopefully it's not a strategy.
exactly, that's a lesson we can take from the episode today, man. Conner, let people who are watching and listening out there know how they can get in touch with you, how they can find you, and get in touch with GI as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Conner LeBlanc on LinkedIn, Conner the White on Instagram. Anyone who speaks French understands what my last name means in French. What else? General Informatics. Geninf.com is our website. Search us. We're easy to find. Our marketing team's very talented, so they definitely put us out there. And you can find me on various economic development forums and things of that nature. So, but yeah, link for business, LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on today. Those of you who are watching the live stream out there, we appreciate you guys tuning in and watching live. If you are watching the recording after the fact or listening on Apple or Spotify, we appreciate you guys doing that as well. Please leave us stars and likes and thumbs up and all that good stuff. It really helps to get the word out to everybody about the show, and let more people see what Conner and other folks like him have got to share. So we'll be back tomorrow with more episodes of Partnership for Profit. Conner, thanks again, man. Really glad to finally get to talk face to face as opposed to just via email. So it's been great, and we'll talk soon, and we'll see you guys tomorrow with more episodes of P for P. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.